Liberty. But why not us? Laney, the crossover, the drive, in the lane.
Jonquel Jones, nice move in the post, gets it to go.
Satu Sabali answers the call.
Ionescu, she got it.
And Stewart doing it all.
That is what makes her special.
Welcome back, everybody, to Liberty FM. I'm François, and unfortunately today we're breaking down another disappointing performance from the New York Liberty, who fell to the Golden State Valkyries 76-67 to wrap up this West Coast road trip. Now, this wasn't just another loss. Coming off that disappointing loss in Seattle, Chris DeMarco challenged his team before the game. He said the Liberty needed to play a full 40 minutes, match Golden State's physicality, and understand exactly how they wanted to attack one of the league's best defensive teams. Instead, many of the same issues we talked about over the last couple of weeks resurfaced once again. The offense stalled. The defense had too many lapses at key moments, and whenever Golden State made a run, the Liberty never really found an answer. The good news? There's no time to dwell on it because the Commissioner's Cup against the Las Vegas Aces is already on Tuesday. But before we look ahead, let's break down exactly what went wrong in San Francisco. Honestly, I didn't think the Liberty started as poorly as the scoreboard might have suggested. For the first few possessions, you could already tell these two teams knew each other extremely well. They had clearly done their homework. Every action felt anticipated, every passing lane was contested, and neither team was giving away easy baskets. Offensively, New York actually generated some good looks. Jonquel Jones and Leonie Fibish connected well early. Sabrina Ionescu found herself open a couple of times, and the Liberty managed to create quality shots. The problem? They simply didn't make them. And after the game, Chris DeMarco pretty much confirmed exactly what we were seeing.
Yeah, I thought we generated good shots offensively. We just missed them.
I actually agree with him. This wasn't a case of terrible shot selections to begin the game. The looks were there. They just weren't falling. At the other end, though, Golden State looked much more comfortable attacking offensively. Whether it was Veronica Byrne getting downhill or the Valkyries attacking for their pick-and-roll actions, they were much more decisive with the basketball. The Liberty, meanwhile, looked hesitant. That hesitation became even more noticeable as the quarter went on. And one player that I really worry about right now is Betnijah Laney Hamilton. There were multiple possessions where she caught the ball completely open beyond the three-point line, and instead of shooting, she pump faked. Now, normally there's nothing wrong with a pump fake, but when you repeatedly pass up open shots, you're actually helping the defense. Golden State had time to recover. The shot clock continued to wind down. Suddenly, instead of taking an open three with 18 seconds left, you force into a much tougher shot with 6 or 7 seconds remaining. That's exactly what Golden State's defense wanted. I want Betnijah taking those shots. We've seen it through her career. She has a quick release. She's capable of knocking down those shots. Sometimes you just got to trust the work you put in and let it fly. But this is the sign of a player that is still trying to find a groove and her place under the new coach and new system. Defensively, there were a couple of things that also caught my attention. Whenever Janelle Salon caught the ball in the mid-post, the Liberty immediately sent help. They doubled her, and to be fair, those double teams worked fairly well early on. Where I thought New York got themselves into trouble was with some unnecessary overhelping from the perimeter, though. There was one possession in particular where Caitlin Chen was trapped almost 30 feet from the basket. She calmly passed out of it, and once she broke the pressure, the entire Liberty defense had to scramble. Now you're rotating late, you're helping the helper, and suddenly Golden State has exactly what they want, numbers and open driving lanes. That happened far too often throughout the afternoon. Another adjustment that also caught my attention came from Chris DeMarco. Sabrina Ionescu hadn't really found a rhythm offensively early, so DeMarco didn't hesitate to go to Pauline Astier. I actually thought that Pauline gave New York some really solid minutes. She pushed the pace, she played aggressively, and once again we saw excellent chemistry with Jonquel Jones, especially on one beautiful interior pass that led to an easy basket. Those are the kind of minutes that don't always show up in the box score, but can absolutely stabilize your offense. Unfortunately, by the end of the first quarter, the Liberty still trailed 20-15. And while 5 points wasn't a huge deficit, I already felt like Golden State was dictating the style of the game. The Liberty were playing hesitant basketball. The Valkyries were playing confident basketball. And as we see in this season, that's usually not a recipe for success. As we move into the second quarter, I actually thought the Liberty responded well. After trailing by 5 at the end of the first, they came out with much more purpose on both ends of the floor. The defensive intensity picked up. They were more aggressive attacking the basket, and for a few minutes, it finally looked like they had settled into the game. The biggest reason for that was Jonquel Jones. Golden State simply didn't have the same size inside, and the Liberty finally started recognizing that. They made a conscious effort to feed Jonquel in the paint, and she immediately made the Valkyries pay. Whether it was finishing around the rim or during contact, she was constantly putting pressure on Golden State's interior defense. The only frustrating part was the free throws, though. We've become so accustomed to Jonquel being reliable at the line, but over the last few weeks, she's had a few unusual misses, and this game was another example. Those were points the Liberty simply couldn't afford to leave on the table, especially in a low-scoring game like this. On the other side, Golden State continued to find success doing exactly what they had done in the first quarter. They attacked the paint. Kayla Charles was getting downhill. Caitlin Chen continued to attack gaps in the defense. Instead of settling for contested jumpers, the Valkyries kept forcing New York into rotations, and once the Liberty started rotating, Golden State trusted the extra pass. That patience is what makes this team so dangerous offensively. Then came the turning point of the game. The Liberty had battled all the way back. The deficit was down to just 2 points. At that stage, it genuinely felt like the momentum was beginning to swing in New York's favor. Instead, everything completely unraveled. Golden State closed the half on an 11-0 run, and in my opinion, that sequence decided the game. What's frustrating is that it wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of mistakes. First, the Liberty stopped attacking. Second, Golden State finally started making the shots they had been missing earlier. Remember, the Valkyries are one of the highest volume three-point shooting teams in the league. Early in the game, they couldn't buy a free, but eventually those shots started falling. It began with a beautiful step-back three from Cecilia Zandelicini. Then came an excellent ball movement that left Kayla Foran wide open in the corner. A possession later, Gabby Williams, who had struggled throughout most of the first half, finally saw one go down. And just like that, 11 unanswered points. Momentum gone, confidence gone, and once again we saw something that's becoming a recurring theme with this Liberty team. When adversity hits, they struggle to respond immediately. They don't always stop the bleeding. Instead, one bad possession turns into two. 2 becomes 4. And before you know it, what was a 2-point game has suddenly become a double-digit deficit. After the game, Chris DeMarco pointed to that sequence.
Didn't get on the glass enough there, and then the end of the second quarter just killed us. Our defense was playing well, and they hit 3 threes in a row, and tough way to close the half.
That quote perfectly summarizes what happened. For nearly 18 minutes, New York had managed to stay within striking distance despite not shooting well. Then in less than 2 minutes, the game completely changed. Another issue that hurt the Liberty during that stretch was Breanna Stewart's foul trouble. She picked up her 3rd foul before halftime and never really found an offensive rhythm. When Stewart is aggressive, she's usually the player who settles everything down. She gets to her spots, she attacks the rim, she gets to the free throw line. But because of the foul situation, she looked much more passive than we're used to seeing. And when your best player isn't dictating the game offensively, everyone else tends to press a little bit more. At halftime, the numbers told the story. The Liberty had scored just 29 points. They were shooting only 34% from the field, just 3 from 14 from three-point range, barely over 21%. Golden State had also outnumbered New York despite being a smaller team. And perhaps the most surprising statistics of all, the Valkyries had scored more points in the paint than the Liberty. Think about that for a second. The Liberty had the size advantage with Jonquel Jones and Stewie, and Golden State was playing without that same interior size, yet somehow the Valkyries were the more aggressive team attacking the basket. That aggressiveness also showed up at the free throw line. Golden State had attempted almost twice as many free throws as New York in the first half. That's not just about officiating, that's about mindset. One team consistently attacked, the other settled. If there was one thing the Liberty needed coming out of halftime, it was urgency. Down by 12, that was the moment to throw the first punch, put some pressure on Golden State, and make the home crowd uncomfortable. and we were getting hopeful that things could change when Sabrina Ionescu led the Liberty to a quick 5-0 run in the third quarter, knocking down a free before converting another basket. But what has been a recurrent theme over the last few games, whenever New York shows signs of building momentum, the opposing team seems to have an immediate answer. The Liberties simply haven't been able to string together enough stops to sustain a comeback. I actually thought they came out with the right intentions defensively. Chris DeMarco and his staff mixed up the defensive coverages, throwing in more zone defense to try to disrupt Golden State's rhythm. On paper, I understood the adjustment. Golden State had been getting comfortable attacking New York's man-to-man defense, so changing the look made sense. The execution, however, wasn't nearly as good. The Liberty zone was simply too loose. There was too much space between defenders. Instead of forcing the Valkyries into difficult decisions, it actually made life easier for them. Good offensive teams know exactly how to attack a zone. You move the ball, you find the seams, and once someone gets into the middle of the floor, the entire defense starts collapsing. That's exactly what Golden State did. Caitlin Chen repeatedly attacked the gaps. Tiffany Hayes got downhill. Janelle Salon found some space around the free throw line in the short corners. And rather than settling for contested jump shots, the Valkyries continued putting pressure on the defense, forcing New York into a rotation that never seemed quite connected. And honestly, that's what impressed me the most about Golden State. Nothing looked rushed. They trusted their spacing, they trusted each other, and every possession had a purpose. Offensively, though, this is where I became the most concerned. Earlier this season, one of the biggest strengths of the Liberty was their offensive flow. We talked about it after several wins. The ball was moving from side to side. There were multiple actions in the same possession, screens away from the ball, cuts, driving kicks. Everyone was touching the basketball. In this game, though, it felt completely different. The offense became predictable. There was far too much isolation, too much standing around, too many late clock possessions where someone had to create something difficult because the offense never generated an advantage. Instead of trusting the offense, players were trying to solve every possession individually. Against a defense like Golden State's, that's exactly what you don't want to do, because the Valkyries defend on a string. Breanna Stewart explained it perfectly after the game.
Yeah, they play really well defense as a team, and I think that pretty much on a string. I felt like the entire night the paint was pretty protected, was pretty packed, and then even when we did have passes to open shooters, you're not open for long. And that's why they're one of the top defenses in the league, is because they have that chemistry and that belief that they can do it, and really it shows on the court.
I thought that quote summed up Golden State's defense beautifully. They shrink the floor, they help each other, they recover quickly, and because they recover so well, they force you into hesitation. Think back to what we talked about in the first quarter. Those pump fakes from Benajolini, those extra dribbles instead of immediate shots. That's not a coincidence. That's what elite defenses make you do. They make you second guess yourself, and once you hesitate, they've always recovered. By the end of the third quarter, the score had grown to 64-48, and at that point, the mountain just felt too steep to climb. The fourth quarter, unfortunately, followed much of the same script. The Liberty kept chasing the game. Every time they threatened to cut the lead into single digits, Golden State came up with another timely basket, another offensive rebound, or another defensive stop. There was never that one stretch where you felt the momentum completely shift. Instead, the game slowly slipped away. With about 3 minutes remaining, Chris DeMarco emptied his bench, essentially signaling that this one was over. The final score will end up being 76-67, but if we're being honest, this game felt more one-sided than the 9-point margin suggests. Now here's where I want to be careful. I've seen a lot of fans already saying that this team isn't good enough. Others are calling for dramatic changes. I understand the frustration. The Liberty have now dropped consecutive games, and offensively they look nothing like the team we saw earlier this season. But I also think context mattered. This was already the 9th different starting lineup in just 20 games. Sabrina Ionescu is still working her way back after missing a month. The team has dealt with injuries throughout the roster. They're coming off a long West Coast road trip. Does that excuse this performance? No, absolutely not. Fatigue can explain some things. It cannot explain everything. The defensive lapses, the hesitation offensively, the inability to respond when Golden State made its runs, those are problems the Liberty have to solve regardless of who's available. And after the game, Chris DeMarco echoed exactly that.
You know, at some point, like, we got to take care of the ball more. We have to take the right shots defensively. We need to get stops when it really matters and get rebounds. So all part of the process. And yeah, I mean,
That's accountability, no excuses. And I think that's the right message, because if there's one thing we've learned over those last two games, it's that talent alone isn't enough. The Liberty still have one of the most talented rosters in the WNBA. I don't think that's changed. But right now, they're simply not playing like one of the league's elite teams. And with the Commissioner's Cup final against Vegas, less than 48 hours after that game, they're going to have to find answers very quickly. When the final buzzer sounded, there wasn't really one question hanging over this team. There were several. Was this simply a bad shooting night? Is this a chemistry issue? Is it the constant lineup changes? Or are the Liberties simply not playing with enough urgency right now? Listening to the post-game press conference, I thought Chris DeMarco, Stewie, and Sabrina Ionescu all answered those questions a little differently, but together they painted a pretty clear picture of where this team is. The first thing that stood out to me was that nobody made excuses. Nobody blamed the schedule, nobody blamed the officials, nobody blamed injuries. Everybody took accountability, and I think that's important. One answer from Chris DeMarco that really caught my attention came when he was asked why the Liberty weren't able to take advantage of their size advantage. You look at the roster and you naturally think Jonquel Jones and Stewie should dominate inside against a small Golden State frontcourt, but DeMarco didn't really frame it as a size issue.
oh, taller players. Yeah, we again, I thought we took the right shots in the first half. They made their run, and we had trouble closing the gap in the second half. So, yeah, obviously some plays we'd like back, but again, we just trust the process, make sure we're getting open shots, and yeah, that's all you can do. And in games where you're not making shots, you got to find other ways, whether it's offensive rebounding, creating turnovers, getting stops on the other end.
Yes, I agree. Every team can have off shooting nights, but the best teams find other ways to win, and unfortunately, the Liberty didn't in this one. I think the original game plan was good. DeMarco has shown before that he can adapt defensively when he wants a spark from his team. Now it's about doing the same offensively when plan A doesn't work, or when players get off of that plan, which causes them to turn the ball over or to not exploit the opponent's weaknesses enough. Furthermore, when asked about his experience so far in this league, this is what he had to say.
It's one of those things where I talk about it often in these press conferences. It's a different challenge every night. You know, you'll play a team that wants to slow it down one night. The next night you'll play a team that's going to be playing really fast. A team that relies on the 3-point shooting. Next night it's maybe offensive rebound. So I think that part I've really enjoyed. And you know, nights like these, like where you feel like you can't get anything going, it's tough, but it will build the character of this team. And like Stu said earlier, like, we're not a finished product, but yeah, I mean, I like where we're headed in terms of the continuity and getting Sab back and everything that comes with that.
Obviously, that's part of the grind and the excitement of being a coach. But this is where his inexperience as a coach in the W shows, because it requires you to find a way to balance the challenges of this league, like the officiating, the tight schedule, or the variety of styles of play you're going to encounter. But at some point, we have to put aside analytics and find a way to get the fire out of these players, to get them out of this funk. And so far, that's been the struggle for this coaching staff and an ongoing issue that we had encountered many, many times last season as well. Then we heard from Stewie, and I thought she gave the most revealing answer of the afternoon. She was asked about JJ, saying after the Seattle loss that this team needed to play with more heart. Stewie didn't shy away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially when things aren't going our way, you know what I mean? You can't like play with heart or have great effort when things are going good. It's really kind of the moments when you're at your lowest. And this team, you know, we're obviously not a finished product, but this wasn't a great showing, especially after, you know, coming off a loss.
That quote really stuck with me because I think that's exactly what we've seen over these last two games. When things are flowing, the Liberty looked fantastic. They share the basketball, the defense feeds the offense, everyone looks confident. But when adversity hits, when shots stop falling, when the other team goes on an 8-0 run or a 10-0 run, that's when this team has struggled to respond. And that's something that has to change. Not in August, not in September, right now. I think accountability and words are good, but actions speak louder than words. Sabrina Ionescu was also asked whether this team needed a moment to look in the mirror, and here's what she had to say.
I mean, we don't need a moment to do that. We always do that. We're professionals, so, we've never, pointed the finger at anyone else besides ourselves, knowing we're the ones out there playing. So, obviously it's an opportunity for us to regroup after this road trip. We play really soon, and we have to focus on the things that we can, continue to get better on those things, especially every single game. We got to just keep growing and getting better and focus on the things we can control. And sometimes the ball's not going to go in. We're going to get good looks, but as long as we're kind of sticking to the process, that's all that matters.
I think that's leadership. She wasn't running away from the criticism. She wasn't pretending everything was fine. She acknowledged that they need to improve while also making it clear that accountability already exists inside that locker room. She also reminded everyone of something that's easy to forget. She missed an entire month, and that's significant. She admitted this is the longest in-season absence she's ever had outside of a rookie year. Think about everything that happened while she was out. New coaching staff, new offensive system, new teammates playing larger roles, rotations changing almost every week because of injuries. Now she's trying to reintegrate into all of that while simultaneously getting herself back into game rhythm. That's not an excuse, it's simply reality. And I actually appreciated that she was honest about it. She even said she's trying to give herself some grace while continuing to improve every game. I think that's the right mindset. And hopefully she can get back to the level that we're accustomed from her. But it's not going to be easy. But Sab is a winner, and I know she's going to prove people that she can get back to an MVP level. Now the challenge becomes responding immediately. And there isn't much time to dwell on this one. The Liberty are flying back across the country before taking on the Las Vegas Aces in the Commissioner's Cup final on Tuesday. Stewie admitted that's probably the toughest part. The quick turnaround, the travel, playing less than 48 hours later. The good news, the Liberty just beat the Aces recently. Both teams know each other extremely well, and there won't be many surprises. I'm expecting Becky Hammon to make adjustment after that last meeting. Now it's Chris DeMarco's turn to make some adjustments of his own. For me, there are three things I'll be watching on Tuesday. First, can the Liberty respond emotionally after consecutive losses? Second, can they rediscover the offensive identity that made them one of the most dangerous teams in the league earlier this season? And finally, can they put together a complete 40 minutes performance? Because if there's one quote that perfectly summarizes the entire episode, it actually came before the game even started. Chris DeMarco said the Liberty needed to play a full 40 minutes. After the game, he admitted that the end of the second quarter changed everything. In a way, those two quotes tell the story of this game. The Liberty competed, they generated opportunities, they had chances to take control, but once Golden State landed its punch, New York never truly answered. That's something they're going to have to fix quickly because the games only get bigger from here. Now, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Liberty FM. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, don't forget to subscribe whenever you get your podcast and follow us on Instagram, Threads, X, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube for more Liberty coverage throughout the season. We'll be back after the Commissioner's Cup final against the Las Vegas Aces with full post-game analysis, player reactions, and everything you need to know. Until next time, take care, and let's hope the Liberty can bounce back on Tuesday. And as we always say, let's go Liberty!